scholars, welcome to today's lesson. In today's lesson, you will learn about the spread of Islam in West Africa. So get your writing materials and let's go to class. Today we'll talk about Islam in West Africa and also an introduction of the Arabic language in West Africa. Africa was the first continent that Islam spread into out of Arabia in the early 7th century. The first West Africans to be converted were the inhabitants of the Sahara, the Berbers, and it is generally agreed that by the second half of the 12th century, the Sahara had become known as Dar al-Islam, which means the country of Islam. After the Berbers' Islamization, the Islamic religion spread into the western Sudan from the closing decades of the 10th century. First, Islam spread into the region west of the Niger Bend, that is Senegambia and Mali, then into the Chad region, and finally into Hausa land. According to some Arabic sources, the first black ruler to embrace Islam was the king of Gao. He did that in the year 1009. The first king of Mali to become a Muslim was Bamadana. He was reigning by the middle of the 11th century. The kings of Ghana, on the other hand, did not embrace Islam until about the beginning of the 12th century, that is, after the invasion by the Almoravids. The history of Islam in West Africa can be explained in three stages, which are containment, mixing, and reform. In the first stage, African kings contained Muslim influence by segregating Muslim communities, and in the second stage, African rulers blended Islam with local traditions as the population selectively appropriated Islamic practices. And finally, in the third stage, African Muslims pressed for reforms in an effort to rid their societies of mixed practices and implement the Sharia laws. This three-phase framework helps shed more light on the historical development of the medieval empires of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, and in the 19th century jihads that led to the establishment of the Sokoto Caliphate in Hausa land and the Umayyan state in Senegambia. Now let's talk about containment as a stage that aided the spread of Islam in West Africa. The early presence of Islam was limited to segregated Muslim communities linked to the Trans-Saharan. There were several factors that led to the merchant-scholars relationship in non-Muslim states in West Africa. Like we know, in the three medieval empires in West Africa at that time, which were Ghana, Mali, and Songhai empires respectively, the Muslims played important roles in the administration of these empires. Muslims were employed as advisors and scribes in Ghana Empire. They had the crucial skills of writing scripts, which helped in the administration of kingdoms. Many Muslims were also religious specialists whose amulets were prized by non-Muslims. Muslim scholars also played an important role in the spread of Islam in West Africa. Hence, in this stage, that is the containment stage, Muslims were employed by African kings to work as civil servants or work in the administration of the empires. To this end, the spread of Islam began spreading rapidly in West Africa. Now let's talk about the second stage or the second phase, which is mixing. In this phase, African rulers began to adopt Islam while ruling over population with different faiths and culture. Many of these rulers blended Islam with traditional and local practices in what experts call the mixing phase. Over time, the population began to adopt Islam as a religion, often selectively appropriating aspects of the Islamic faith. But like I said earlier, that Islam first came into West Africa, and those that embraced the religion at first were the rulers. The rulers ruled over the population that had different religion. In this case, some of the local people began to adopt the Islamic religion as a faith which they practiced, but they selected those parts of the religion or those aspects of the religion that went in down with whatsoever it was that they believed in. That is, those aspects of the religion that did not kick against the beliefs of their traditional religion. And by so doing, it started mixing the African traditional religion and the Islamic religion. For instance, in ancient Mali Empire, Muslims played a prominent role in the courts as counselors and advisors, while the empire's founder was himself not a Muslim. Also, in Nigeria, by the 14th century, all the ruling elites of Hausa lands were Muslims, although the majority of the population did not convert to Islam until the 18th century jihad. Much like the earlier rulers of the Muslim states, the rulers of Hausa land blended local practices with Islam. And now I've explained earlier that in this stage or this phase, which is the mixing phase, those Africans that converted to the Islamic religion mixed both the Islamic religion practices and the African traditional beliefs. They picked those parts of the Islamic religion that favored their practices as traditional worshippers. Now let's talk about the last stage, which is the reform. The 19th century jihad movement best explains the third phase in the development of Islam in West Africa. This period was significant in that it marks a shift in Muslim communities that practice Islam mixed with pagan rituals and practices to societies that completely adopt Islamic values and establish the Sharia. In this case, those West Africans that had fully converted to the Islamic religion pushed against those half-baked Muslims. Now, there were some individuals, like I've said before, that practiced the Islamic religion half, and also they practiced the African traditional religion, which is called idol worshipping. Now, those full converts of Islam pushed for a total reform in their societies. That is, they didn't want any sort of two-way religion practiced by one person. Those that were converted to Islam and were practicing the Islamic religion opted that those people that accepted the Islamic religion should accept it fully without practicing any other religion. Hence, they pushed for a total compliance by everyone, and the jihad, which is also called the Holy War, worked in favor for the continuous spread of Islam in West Africa. Now, once this was achieved, it was settled that a particular region or a particular empire had been converted to the Islamic religion, then came in the Arabic language or the Arabic writing. Now, as we know, the Arabic language is the main language or the main writing of the Muslims. So for somebody to have accepted the Islamic religion automatically means that that person has also accepted the Arabic language. Whether or not the person understands it or not, the person has accepted it. Now, for those that accepted the Islamic religion, automatically they started learning the Arabic language and writing. Okay, now so far we've discussed the spread of Islam in West Africa. We've also mentioned that it took 3 phases or 3 stages, which were containment, mixing, and reforms. We've also talked about the introduction of the Arabic language in West Africa as a language that comes with the Islamic religion. So for anybody to have accepted the Islamic religion automatically means that the person has accepted the language which is the Arabic language. With this, we've come to the end of today's lesson. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in our next class. Goodbye and stay safe.